Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome back to Insurance for the New Possible, a Chubb conversation. We are joined today by Bhatia, the head of digital revenue growth at Chubb, and Neil Trinidad, the chief marketing officer at Gcash, and formerly the VP and head of new businesses. Thank you both so much for doing this. How are you doing, by the way?
Awesome. Very happy to be here.
How was your flight?
It was good. It was better than expected.
How far is it from the Philippines to here?
It's about 3.5 hours.
Okay,
so today it was fast. It was around 3 hours.
So it's not that bad, actually.
Yeah.
Where were you coming from?
I'm based in this office.
You're leaving today, though.
I am.
Like that.
And welcome to Chubb office.
It's such a nice office. I'm so impressed. The coffee's fantastic.
Everybody says this about the coffee.
It's so fancy.
Yeah,
that's right. The first thing we do is bring people coffee from our barista to make sure they like the office.
They feel comfortable. Yeah. I love it. Okay, look, before we get into the central part of this conversation, why don't we get a little bit of your background for some context? And let's start with you.
Sure. Thank you. So I've been in insurance and banking industry for 18 years.
Okay.
And I've done everything from digital transformation to digital distribution and everything in between. At Chubb, I focus on digital growth from my existing digital partners and businesses. And my job's very easy. It's about driving customer adoption and satisfaction.
Got it. Neil?
Okay, so I'm a marketer by profession. I've been doing this for quite a long time. I started off in FMCG. Then I moved to Google. Then I moved to e-commerce. And now I'm in fintech. Today in Gcash, which is the number one e-wallet in the Philippines, I look after our new businesses, which includes InsurTech, which is so exciting. I like to say that insurance is exciting. I also look after crypto and data APIs. So an entirely different field, but also an exciting space with so much opportunity and so much potential.
But entirely different from what? I mean, crypto, at some point, all of these things are merging together, right?
That's true.
If you think, and tell me where I'm wrong here, but if you think that like finance and technology drive the growth of every business and kind of it's the grease that kind of oils the world's businesses, what's happening in crypto is definitely going to come into insurance as well,
Exactly.
No?
It's all converging at some point.
Completely, right?
And it's good to get to know all of this technology ahead of time and see how you can use technology to help address or solve problems.
So go ahead.
Can I just add one thing?
Please.
He said insurance is awesome before he said crypto was. He's excited by
That's
insurance.
true, right? Oh my gosh.
You know but you both know the way I feel about this,
Yes,
right?
yes, we
Is
do.
that for those people out there that say, oh, insurance isn't sexy, I want to stop the conversation and go into another room.
Yeah, well said.
That's true.
But I mean, one thing that works for insurance all the time is it follows trade, right? And if we look at insurance, and now with the digitalization and how e-commerce is picking up, and that's why insurance is moving to e-commerce and embedded solutions. You talk about crypto. When it enters the universe, I know insurance will be part and parcel of that game.
So can we talk about this a little bit?
Sure.
I like to pull on threads, right? Because again, I don't think you can remove who you are from what you do, particularly if you're doing it well. But how do you get from fast-moving consumer goods into insurance? Because you go FMCG into Google,
Into e-commerce.
into e-commerce,
Into now InsurTech.
into insurance. And I feel like you're just going to drill down back into e-commerce, into Google, which is essentially a data and advertising company and marketing.
Correct.
Back into FMCG, which gets you to relevance. And something I think you like to say, which is insurance goes to where the people are.
Yeah.
And the people are there in FMCG and e-commerce. So how did that happen?
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, right, I've moved different industries, but the principles always remain the same.
What is that?
And that's you need to understand who your consumer is, what their barriers are, and what is a problem that you believe you can solve. At the end of the day, insurance is not always top of mind. Let's face it, the Philippines today, 110 million people,
Right.
2% insurance penetration. So even if there's 80% awareness, at 2% penetration, it shows you that there's so many barriers, right? So what I love about this job is trying to understand what are those barriers and how can we work together with partners like Chubb to address them.
So can I ask this, though? What drives penetration? And I want to give a little bit of context to this as well. Because I want, it's not just a do I know about this product thing. Is there a GDP per capita issue as well, where financial services at scale, but insurance in particular, become relevant once you have something to protect? Is that fair?
That's a great question. And I think how insurance was probably 10 years ago was comprehensive insurance at a certain price point. That's not affordable when we talk about GDP.
Right.
What is happening right now is people, while earning and making e-commerce transactions, are using a lot of their hard-earned money to buy things and improve their lifestyles. And that's where insurance is now seeping in, becoming micro and trying to adopt to that needs and those lifestyles and protect them because they are very important. So from comprehensive moving down to the relevance and the product that people are currently consuming.
The Philippines is an underinsured country. The average daily wage earner earns $10 a day.
Got it.
Right? $10 a day. We call them the hustling mass. They work really hard, but they are a sickness away from poverty. Mm-hmm. And they cannot afford the expensive comprehensive insurance plans. But the magic is in understanding how can you make insurance part of their everyday use cases. So I'll give you an example. Because it's something we're really proud that we've done together with Chubb is our Bill Protect. So it's a product wherein if you're paying a bill on Gcash, say you're paying your telecom bill for $10.
Right.
For less than 1% premium or 10 US cents, you can get insured with personal accident coverage of up to 36 times your bill amount for the next 30 days. So you'll get around $360 worth of insurance coverage for 30 days. And the magic about this is it's a seamless part of the user journey.
So insurance has, I'm going to use the word history twice, but has historically been a sort of looking backwards, data-based way to use actuarial math, right, to then understand, how do I price this? But in a country where 2% penetration or low single-digit penetration, how do you price and how do you use technology, and both of you can answer this, right, that type of product, right? So how do you take advantage of data and technology to price that product so that you can understand what the real risks are associated with 36 times the bill when there is no history?
That's true.
For that. How does that work?
So Bill said, Gcash is an example, taking Bill Protect, right? While we are looking at a transactional risk of $10.10 of premium,
right,
what we have the opportunity to is look at the number of transactions, the frequency, the background, the overall risk composition or expense composition of that user. That allows us and gives us confidence in terms of what the price parity should be, what the expected loss ratios are.
Right.
But with technology today and the data that we have today, we are very agile, right? We make hypotheses. We decide. You smile on the word agile, which is very interesting.
No, because I'm just thinking about the next. I'm smiling about something else, but agile I do completely understand. But go ahead, because there's so much here.
Yeah. So the amount of data that we have and the technology being agile allows us to flexibly keep adjusting our proposition, our price, even our coverages from time to time, because it's important to be relevant, and relevant not just in a journey, but relevant to that customer, from where the customer background comes from.
That's so true. If you look at Gcash today, Gcash has 66 million users. That's 80% of the adult population in the Philippines.
Right.
More than half of that is fully KYC'd. So what makes it good, what makes it easier is we have a fully KYC base.
So KYC, know your customer. Yeah?
Know your customer.
Go ahead.
Yep, know your customer. And we're able to already get that data. Right. So whereas if you're applying for a traditional insurance policy, you'd have to go through all of the paperwork. Here, it's a KYC based.
Does that mean to get a Gcash account, I already have to do some KYC
Correct.
stuff? So I already have to give you some information, which I opt into. I give it to you so that I can get access to that product. So by definition, you already have the data.
That's correct. So I wanted to share some insights because I love what Om said about data, right?
Yeah,
and we have a lot of data that we can look into in terms of modeling. We found out that our core user of Bill Protect is lower income Filipinos.
Makes sense.
And the average sort of premium value is around 20 cents. Yeah. And they're
for that product.
For that product specifically, which is different from the other products we have. And we found out that the top use cases or the top billers that they're paying for is number one, loans, which was surprising. Normally I would think it's electricity bills or water bills, but actually it's lending. Loans. That's the number one biller that's that people are paying for, followed by electricity, followed by telco. So you're already seeing now that the base that's actually availing of the product are, one, the hustling mass, lower income. They're paying for their loans. And now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing some CRM as well as some marketing efforts to tailor fit our messaging and where the messages will appear.
What is the borrowing supporting?
What is about? Oh, we have so
You
on.
understand what I mean, right? Because
Correct.
it's not a housing loan. What is it?
They're normally micro loans.
And personal loans that
Correct.
people run for their daily or monthly expenditure from other organizations.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
micro lending is also quite big.
Okay.
And that's what we're seeing, right? So we're now able to identify who the consumer is. We know what their behavior is. We know when they're paying their bills. And now it's about using that data to be able to serve them the right product, the right messaging at the right time.
So can we go back to your experience, right? FMCG, into Google, into e-commerce. No, I want to keep talking about this because I think it's really important. And then into insurance. But if you have access to the idea that they're taking out loans, right? So that their transactions are paying back loans. If those loans are supporting their day-to-day life, you know what they're buying.
Yeah.
So then can you extend this? I use the word extend. I like that, actually. Can you extend this into the products that they're buying as well? You talk a lot about relevance, right? But if they're buying, they're probably paying with their phone or something connected to their digital wallet.
That's true.
If you know that, how do you then extend it on a micro basis then into bigger products based on the products that they're buying?
If done right, the penetration can increase. The data can allow you to sell subsequent products. The question always is, are you going to do more comprehensive product immediately after a micro, or are you going to do multiple micro, understanding the needs and covering different risks?
Right.
And that's, I think, where we're going now next.
Because we've seen plenty of players that are entering the insurance market, frankly, say we've sold 100 million policies.
Yeah.
It sounds really great, but they're not that profitable. Right.
Thankfully, our story is different.
I'm just making a point that there are plenty of other new players coming into the
Yeah.
market, right? Chubb's obviously not a new player, but that's the point that I wanted to make, that if you do, because you said this, if you build the product correctly and not just to hit a metric, if you're doing it thoughtfully, then that product actually can be profitable. And you're actually not concerned about selling 100 million policies, but you're concerned about selling policies to the right people.
That's true.
So that then they can advance into other things.
That's
Sorry, I
true.
interrupted
I
you.
wanted to give some numbers, right? So you're
ahead.
talking about 100 million. With Chubb and Gcash's product, we've sold around 3.4 million of these Bill Protect policies year to date.
So 3.3
3.4 million.
3.4,
policies.
sorry, out of 66 million people connected.
Yes.
And this is
3.4
just
million.
within 7 months of our
Yes.
operation.
So it's like 5, almost 6%.
Correct.
Yeah.
And around 20% of those are repeat users, meaning they are availing subsequent months.
Right.
So that's phenomenal for a country that has 2% penetration. And this is just the beginning. This is only one product. Yeah. And you were talking earlier, Michael, about, where do you go from here?
Yeah, what does growth look like?
Growth looks like embedding yourself in other everyday use cases, because that's where the consumer is today.
Right, but that's why I was asking before about how do you get into these other products. So how does that work? And can we also talk a little bit about what's the technology that you're using? I understand the mobile phone, but there's more than that, right? Maybe dig a little bit deeper into what's the tech that you're using to get into the next product, to facilitate that growth, and then how you're using the data around that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so for me, for Chubb, the Chubb Studio is very, very important because it brings the flexibility of continuously changing our propositions, testing different hypotheses, learning from data.
Go ahead.
And then in order to make these decisions on high scale, right, we talk about millions of policies that are happening, we are maturing our 3 modular AIs internally that's looking and reading a lot of this data and trying to propose the right price point from a parity perspective, the benefit summary and the totals that people need because they're paying multiple bills and doing multiple transactions, and the proposition of why should they buy this user versus that user. So it's not a mass. Even though it's a mass channel, the proposition, pricing, and products are not necessarily mass.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So first of all, we're happy that we work together very, very well hand in hand, right? So we can't do this without our partners. I think what's important with our side of Gcash is we manage a platform. There's multiple technology and sort of products that we use to power all of this.
Right.
So what we've done is we've made sure that the product that Chubb has is embedded in the process flow or the product flow of one of our most popular use cases, which is pay bills, right? So there's a pay bill product user flow, and we've embedded ourselves in it so much so that we study the UX. We look at if you put the pop-up in this stage of the journey, or if you make it this big or this small, you change the words, you actually see a difference in penetration.
Are you A/B testing in real time as well?
We are able to check. So what we've been doing is we've been checking different types of messaging, different pop-ups, and we see the results. So
are you surprised at all?
I am. We are surprised. There was one time that we changed the pop-up we decided, let's add some more information, let's add some images, and it didn't work well.
Isn't this the best part about developing products today, though? Because if you think about even just 15 or 20 years ago, right? I mean, you're new at the insurance business, but not new at business, yeah?
Correct.
If you think about 10, 15, 20 years ago, if you made a change like that, in a way, it could have been fatal.
That's true.
Because going back and fixing it would have been like, really?
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, and that's the power of the data and being able to test and look at data in real time, being able to kind of adjust, make mistakes, document those mistakes so that you move on and go back to what was working.
Yeah.
And this classic example for me is so humbling because we made those change.
We thought it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, things dropped by half for us to go back, but then apply those learnings on the other journeys that we're building on. Yeah.
It's so rare, though, to be able to get that real-time feedback, and because you know you're right.
Yeah.
Before you start, you know you're right. I've thought about it. I got this.
Yeah.
You do it, and you're like, maybe I wasn't. But the great thing is you can change it.
Yeah,
that's
and
true.
it's not fatal. Can I ask you this? I want to go back to this idea. You've been in the insurance business for 18 years.
Yeah, banking and insurance.
Financial
Insurance
services.
pair, 10 years.
But still, 10 years. It's not 10 months, right?
Yeah.
So I always like to figure out, could you conceptualize where things were going 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and now tech has caught up to where you thought it would be? Or are you looking around now and thinking, oh, wait a second, we can do all these new things? Do you know what I mean? And that's for both of you, actually.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think partner or micro insurance or embedded insurance has evolved, right?
Sure.
And the one big thing that has changed right now is the tech is cheap and easy compared to where it was 5-7 years ago.
For sure.
You were dependent on partners and you were trying to find the right product. So insurance went through this evolution of finding the right underwriting structure, to be honest, right? Do you do micro, name basis, non-name basis, group basis, and so on? So the product, then the tech, that was very expensive because it wasn't built then. Then it was about finding partners in relevant products. So now you solve the underwriting, solve the technology, but now you want to do the 30-cent product and the 20-cent product.
Right.
And now where we are in terms of it is being able to now digest all this data and come up with the right product and then the right next step and the right proposition. Right. I think that evolution has been very interesting for insurance.
And how about for you?
For me, it's been so exciting overall. I've shifted industries.
I love talking to people that are enthusiastic.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I've shifted industries 3 times in the last 5 years. So
and was that always purposeful for you?
It
Do you know what I
was.
mean? Did you look and think, that is going to be super cool and I can learn something?
I did, actually. It was all deliberate. When I moved from FMCG, I moved to Google. I said, ad tech is going to be the future.
I need
when
to
I was
know
in ad
this,
tech,
right?
I saw e-commerce was starting. I
Right.
needed to be there. And then last year, I saw Gcash and financial services and fintech is where it's going to go next.
Right.
And I'm happy that I've been proven right all along. It was a good set of moves. But I think what I see here is, I love what said, because absolutely right. The technology is getting cheaper. There's so much data at our disposal. But I also think now our consumers are changing. What the pandemic did was it accelerated adoption at a mass scale.
Go ahead.
Everyone's now using their mobile phone apps, fintech apps, and now they're so much more receptive to new financial services that they would not have even considered before.
Is there a generational change taking place in the usage of stuff as well? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's such a good question, right? Normally we think that it's only the millennials or the Gen Zs that are ahead of the curve. Right. Actually now what we find is, and I was talking to a colleague in the van earlier, even the uncles, the aunties, the grandparents are now using advanced financial services on their phone. And it's amazing.
I'd like to talk about this too, because when I talk about innovation, I actually taught a course on innovation at a university in Thailand. One of the things that I asked the students was, they said to me, where do you come up with ideas? And I said to them, well, don't you ever go through your day-to-day life and think, why doesn't somebody fix this thing?
Correct.
That's how you figure it out.
Yeah.
But this is why I think it's important to note that it's not just millennials, right? Because adults, if you allow me to say, have always been thinking, why doesn't somebody fix this? And when they do, they're like, I'm doing it right now.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, it is fair. And I again, with the use of the phones as well as the social media apps and the communication apps, I think the inherent behavior of users have changed. They're not seeing technology as a barrier to anything. They're actually getting empowered by it.
Correct.
They're actually utilizing it for their day-to-day work that they used to do. They're literally, it's become so obvious.
Right.
But I do have a follow-up question on that, if I may.
Please.
there's always this two kind of schools of thought. Should insurance be invisible in journeys that we do, very embedded, or should it be obvious in front and center, enhancing that journey? So how do we sit in terms of, do we adopt it by making its own proposition stand strong, or should we hide it so that it's just part of that journey?
I think that's such a good question, and we're learning as we go, right? In G-Insure, we operate a marketplace, but we also have embedded insurance. And right now, what I'm looking at, embedded insurance, is cracking the model. Because if you think about it, our hustling mass Filipinos, hard-working Filipinos, they don't normally have enough time to think about researching insurance plans, right? Figuring out what's the right one for them. They are going about their everyday. Because we're part of that everyday, we found ourselves being relevant at the moment they need us the most, right? So after they're paying a bill for, $10, right? You're there at that moment. It's pre-ticked. It goes, if you proceed, you're going to get insurance coverage 36 times your bill amount. Suddenly, we're also educating consumers where they normally wouldn't have been given that chance before. So I think it's a seamless part of the journey. It's not necessarily invisible because you're there at the moment that they need you the most. And I think that's the right model. That's why it's so exciting.
What's your view?
That's well said, right? With CHOP, its businesses and partners, we've seen journeys that are as successful as 50% adoption rate in the journey or conversion rate.
That's high.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's super high.
And there are journeys where we have 5 or 6% of conversion rate. And it's a science at the end of the day. That's something that we're trying to mature internally, right? What makes a journey and a conversion rate work? It's a journey. You have to test various things, as we spoke about, the right price, the right proposition. But there needs a discipline, right? There needs a discipline of a structure to making sure you're making the right steps and continuously being relevant. And for me, the key matrix that's the most important is that adoption rate, right? What is the penetration in the base?
Correct.
And that's the opportunity.
How do you balance this idea of relevance and being there at the moment when it's needed around knowledge and this idea of, even if it's not there, how can I get it?
Yeah.
Right? In other words, I know when I'm hungry and I know where to get dinner. But sometimes I need protection and I don't know where to get it. So how do you find that balance between embedded, which is not invisible, right, but is kind of more seamless and frictionless, to, wait a second, I just got this thing. I need to protect it. So how do you do that?
So, one of the most cliche things people say is customers don't wake up dreaming about buying insurance.
I'm not listening.
I'm
not listening. No, go ahead.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think the answer to your question, it goes hand in hand. The relevance, and it's our responsibility, I feel, to be at the right time, at the right place, with the right product and a message. And if we don't do, we fail. And rightfully, we deserve to fail. And when we do it, it's a stellar success. And it's the continuous test and optimization that you have to do in order to crack it right.
I love that. I'll share another insight.
Please.
When we found out that the majority of our users for Bill Protect is actually our hustling mass, lower income.
Did that surprise you, though?
It didn't really. It validated what we were thinking, but then it made us review all of our messaging. Our messaging is in full English. All of the consumer prompts are in English, and go, if your hustling mass is the one who's availing of this product to pay their loans, why is everything in English? So now what we're going to be doing is we'll convert it to Taglish, which is a combination of a more sort of conversational Tagalog and English, because we need to find a way to make our messaging relevant and easy for our users, right?
So how do you know that that's the method of communication?
For me, I think it's coming from my experience as a marketer. Understanding that if you're going to be talking to that target segment, you need to speak their language in order to get them to pay attention.
Right.
Yeah? And applying that here.
Yeah.
So I say that language is power.
Correct.
So this is actually really important to me. And I don't think you can live in a society, in any society, frankly, and understand it without speaking that local language.
Yeah.
Because the nuances and the subtleties that are built into the languages are also built into the messages that language is communicating.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, localizing what we're trying to protect, how we're trying to communicate is extremely important. So many a times, even a product naming convention, not just the commentary and the proposition around it, is as local and as obvious and as relevant to that journey as possible. Right. And we have to agree, the use case that you said, people who are paying loans, the hustling mass, they deserve to be spoken differently. The product we deserve to give them the right protection and a message that's protecting their loans versus somebody who's paying school fees or transportation fees or the other utility bills and so on.
Yeah, I mean, can I say this? We often talk about financial literacy.
Absolutely.
But maybe it's flipped on its head. Maybe the messaging is not literally, what's the right word? It's not being financially literate to the people that are actually trying to use it because you're not speaking in their language, in quotes. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I think in my many years as a marketer, I've realized that it's not just the message, but how you say it that really matters the most. And I think that as we're going through this journey, it's getting those consumer insights and matching that with some testing to see what'll really work.
Yeah, I mean, I love saying this, right? So my grandfather, and I love quoting my grandfather because he was a great guy, but my grandfather used to say, it's not what you say that matters.
Yes.
It's how you say it.
How you say it, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that that's really super important. Can we talk about partnerships for a moment? When you're sitting there at scale, right, at 35,000 feet and thinking, who would make a great partner? What are you looking for? And I want to know from you too, because it's the flip side, right?
Yeah.
But I'm curious to start here.
That's such a great question. I think for us, the partnership comes down to partners who have built trust and faith in their customers, right?
Okay.
Who the customers rely on, whether it's day to day, whether it's financial solutions, whether it's other solutions. It's all about one, scale, second, relevance, and we always value check ourselves. Can we make our partner's proposition better? By us adding ourselves to it, can we add value? Can we continue the trust their customers have in them? If they have the volume and the relevance and the trust, but we can't add value to their journey, it's probably not somewhere we will raise our hands and be there.
In reverse, actually, it's probably detrimental to both sides.
Yeah. I mean, for us at Gcash, we're very fortunate that we get to work with Chubb. And what we found about what's working in this relationship is there's a common goal to really see how we can develop products that will help address the needs of our consumers. And there's a good balance of innovation, a good balance of willingness to take some risks and then see how it works. And the constant communication to see how can we make this product even better. And I think, and because of that, now we have a few more things up our sleeves to launch for other use cases, which we know is going to work really well as well.
So that's it. That's the thing I want to ask, right? How comfortable are you with taking risk? Because every time you launch a new product today, it's a risk.
That's true.
Right? And then how do you match the risk between this company and this potential partner and vice versa?
Yeah, again, a great question. In partnerships like Gcash, you have the foresight of a lot of insight. You kind of start learning about customers before you get into another journey, another product.
Fair enough.
But everything starts with a hypothesis. It's a belief system and confidence that we have in each other and the confidence the customers have with our partners. And you put those hypotheses up. And we spoke about technology and the flexibility of changing. I think the commitment between us and the partners is to be at it. Put a discipline and a structure around it and to be at it. And to make sure there's progressive improvement and there's a method to that growth.
How about you?
For me, I think when it comes to financial services like what we're doing, there aren't a lot of sort of rule books on how to do it. So that's what makes it exciting.
I was going to say, that's the neat part
exactly,
of it,
right? You have to test it.
Oh, there's nowhere to
There's
look
no way. So they will learn from us. And I think that's what's the most exciting thing about this is we will test it out. We will launch a product based on how our understanding of the consumer, our understanding of the industry, our understanding of the way the product works. And let's see if it works. Let's see how it works in the first few weeks. And then let's iterate as we go. And as we keep doing this, it gives us more confidence to try new things, to launch new things. Because at the end of the day, if it's working, then let's keep at it. Let's drive that mass adoption, that increase in penetration.
Did you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to acknowledge that. And that's where strategic or this commitment between partnerships really help, right? You know you're going to not be discouraged with a certain flattish performances because you know you are in it for the long run and you have the history and the methods to keep at it, as I said, and keep making progress.
I love this idea of keeping at it. I really believe strongly that in business, you can sit on the sideline and think, let's just wait until the time is right to actually do this product or test this product, or you can actually just go into it and do it. Sure, you've got to find the right partner to do this. And I say often, no one succeeds alone. Or you couldn't go and do this product by yourself. And frankly, you couldn't create the product.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it has to work that way. But you can't sit on the sideline and think, I'm just going to wait until the right moment. You're right. You have to be at it.
Yeah.
Because it's when you're at it that then you can take advantage of what you've already built, the 66 million customers, the studio, and then think, how do we use all of these tools that we have to then iterate around creating the products for the right people at the right time? Because if you're not in it, you're just sitting there looking, going,
true.
who knows?
Exactly.
But let me ask you this. While you're doing that, you're thinking, and you said this, and I think you said it as well. I want to start here. If the hustling mass is not just one mass, right, but every person then becomes very different, how do you drill down even further and use the tools that you're developing, whether it's today or 5 years out, to personalize that so that I don't have the same product that you have? Because even if our income is the same, we're not the same. So how does that work?
Personalization of the end users is extremely important. And I that's also the responsibility that we have. And if we are part of these millions of transactions that we have and millions of users and customers that are trusting us, it's very important from a execution or conversion rate perspective to do that.
Right.
From us in Gcash, we're now moving into greater personalization.
How does that work?
So we realize we have several tech improvements that are happening. Specifically, one use case is in our CRM program. So
do you build your own CRM?
We do have partners that we work together, but a lot of the data that we have, the segmentation, different use cases, we feed it into our CRM.
Go ahead.
So much so that now we want to be able to target different types of personae and different types of users based on several factors, right? So income, what are the most common use cases?
Right.
To be able to serve them different types of messaging. So definitely a big opportunity is CRM. So that's how we're going to be looking at it. But later on also, as the platform continues to evolve, we're going to have greater personalization. So that'll help as well. So I think for all we know, we'll have more developments from the tech side on Gcash's end, and I think that's going to create more opportunities for even greater personalization and segmentation.
And that's where a strong partner who's already so data rich and is able to segment and find the right use cases and the right needs of the customers, it's easier for us as an insurer to match that from the right coverage.
The more you get involved in the insurance side of the business, do you then start hypothesizing, to use your word, about the products that could be created? Not as an insurer, right? But just thinking, wait a second, should we do it this way? And then going back and forth. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And saying, again, we can't do it ourselves, but we can give you this insight. Can you create a product around this?
Absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of the new discussions are happening now. Right? So, I mean, it's as simple as just look at what are the top use cases that millions of Filipinos are doing today. They're sending money, they're buying low, they're paying bills, they're shopping online. Already, if you look at that, there's so many opportunities to embed insurance in that journey, right? Because they're there. Millions of transactions are there. So we just have to find a way to insert ourselves, offer the right product, be there at the moment of checkout. And there you go. It'll unlock a whole slew of opportunities. And that's why I was saying it without revealing too much. We have several things up our sleeves, which are exciting.
And I'll just add to your hypothesis question and what Neil said, right? There is no ideal journey when you start. There is no ideal product. There cannot. No matter how much data you review and how much you kind of reference from history and so on. That's why the ideal journey is actually a journey by itself. You have to continue testing various benefit levels, price level, proposition, placements, look and feel in a fashion that you are developing learning that you can apply across the board and keep improving what customer expectations are and attachment rate is.
How important is it for both of you to get to a point where you can insure cohorts of people that have up until now been uninsurable?
Yeah, that's such a good question, right?
Because again, I was talking to somebody in India as well, and one of the things that he said to me was there's a whole cohort of people in India that's just like one illness away from poverty.
That's true.
Right, and we talked about this. But these sort of really vulnerable segments of people also deserve to be insured.
Absolutely.
How do we address this?
For us in Gcash, our purpose is really finance for all. If you look at it, the Philippines has a whole population that's underbanked and unbanked.
Right.
People that would not have the access to even be able to get financial services.
Right.
And it's all about democratizing that, right? Giving them access, making it easy, driving education, giving them the right products at the right price points. Yeah. And I think it's so important, right? Insurance is so critical to protecting, lives and livelihoods. And when we think about it, it all goes back to how do we serve our consumers the best.
Right.
For instance, there's a whole base that are consumers, right? But there's also a whole base of our users that are MSMEs, micro, small, medium enterprises,
right.
Business owners that also need their livelihoods, their businesses, their
right,
lives.
because again, they're one missing sale away from going out of business, right?
And normally, these types of individuals or business owners don't have the documents, the papers to be able to even get an insurance policy.
Or get a loan, to be fair.
Loan. So
right.
It's all about finding out what that friction is, finding ways to address it, and then working with partners to come up with the products.
I agree. And, I look at it from two aspects. One is the awareness and the education in the audience,
right.
whether it's individuals or MSMEs. And the second is the access, right? Yeah, the access of insurance and the right products that meet their needs. And thankfully, technology is helping us bridge that gap. But a lot of this has to, as you said, democratize and be available in as many products, experiences, expenditure that people are doing for us to then insure them one by one and provide a better penetration of insurance.
If you have people doing this on their phone, you talked about education, both of you, is there a way to provide micro snippets of knowledge as well along the way?
Correct.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because you don't want to bash people over the head with education. The one thing you definitely don't want to do is tell people they're not educated.
That's true.
You don't know this.
You can't.
There's no way to help. Yeah, but there's no way to help somebody, right? But if you can just give them little bits and pieces of information along the way, how do you figure that into the way you're building these products, but also the way you're communicating with your consumers?
Yeah, I'll just add one thing. I think we were talking about it before the podcast.
Perfect.
The regulators in Philippines are doing a phenomenal job.
How?
They have the strategy paper with clear goals and guidelines of insurance penetration, awareness, micro insurance, MSMEs, as you said.
So from a regulatory standpoint, there's a sense of we need to democratize this.
Correct.
Yes.
Go ahead.
They're talking about at a certain stage by, I think, 2025, 2030, they have targets of one insurance penetration. They have targets of awareness. I think they are doing a lot, enabling partners like GCash and the other financial institutions, not just to build these solutions and make them accessible, but even the presence for retail banks to be in the rural parts of Philippines, for people to have access for bank accounts. Even they have done KYC digitally now, right? Correct. So there's a government service for everybody to automate KYCs. So keeping regulator at the center of it in what Philippines is doing, which is wonderful, all of us and our ecosystems then responsible to adopt and be available and deliver the promises.
You've said it so well. Thank you.
Right. Thankfully, I did my research.
You did very clearly. And I wanted to add on to that, right? So FinLit is a huge thrust of what we do. And you're so right when you said you cannot, bash them over the head with so much information. No. You also can't talk down to them. Nope. So it always goes back to how do you educate them at the right moment? Yeah. And within also the app, we have educational step-by-step guides.
Do
right?
you really?
So we do. So if you're...
And you're moving those into Taglish as well?
For some, not all. Depends again on the user, right?
Yeah.
But for instance, when you're clicking on a new product or a service for the first time, normally there are step-by-step guides that will help journey you along the way.
I love this.
That's another one. We are also looking at other ways to be able to create capsules of content or education. That's still a work in development.
So important, yeah.
And also at the end of the day, there's a whole stream of how do we work together with government, with other institutions, with communities. So one big thrust that we're looking at also is how do we, for instance, the MSME segment, there's so many. How can you penetrate communities, drive FinLit there so that you teach a few that then can help spread the message to more.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to think of models that can scale. And
you want to use your own community to educate the rest of their community as well. I mean, the network effects there are really important.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's what you're suggesting. The last thing I want to ask about, because you're involved in it, and I don't know what your involvement level is you talked about one of the other things is crypto.
Correct.
And distributed ledger technology. Right? I don't care about the level of Bitcoin. I'm actually wildly indifferent. But I think the underlying technology is going to help go a long way to democratize a lot of things. Are you working on this as well?
Right now, no,
But you're thinking about
we're thinking about it,
right?
correct?
That's
'Cause
what I want to establish.
I think what's important is, especially when it comes to, for instance, blockchain technology, there's so many different use cases.
For sure.
And it's all about deciding which use case to start off with first.
Right.
Right? I mean, we're at this stage right now where, we are in a bear market, but it's actually the best time now to educate, to teach,
Right. I mean,
to start developing products.
Look, let's be clear. If you know anything about history, you know that the best time to start a business
Is now.
is when everything's terrible.
Absolutely.
Because most
Absolutely.
people are scared, and the fewer people that you're competing with, I mean, it's for every reason, right? Capital is going to be more, all these kinds of things matter. So you want to build in a recession and then benefit from the wave that comes when you come out of it. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing in the crypto space, right? In other words, like I said, I don't care where Ethereum's trading.
Correct.
I really don't care. What I care is that they've gone from proof of work to proof of stake.
Correct.
And that they've now taken a mechanism to make things faster, more efficient, and that they've been through that whole transition because now real things can start to happen.
Yeah, but so from my perspective again, the technology deserves a business application, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It keeps talking about the value of these currencies. However, I remember, and you remember this too, right? 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when crypto or blockchain in itself was such an important term from an insurtech and insurance domain
Absolutely.
perspective,
Yeah.
there have been conceptualized use cases and POCs that many insurers have actually tried behind the scene, right? Tried to digitalize their claims, automate various processes and checks and validations and so on and so forth. However, none of them actually went and happened, right? None of them actually.
There was a lot of talk about it.
A lot. There were a lot
Full
of
of sound
POCs.
and fury.
Yeah, it was.
Signifying very little. but
However, the personal feeling is it's at this edge where the right use cases will come.
Absolutely.
And the actual true digitization of so many processes an insurance goes through will move on to a blockchain environment, will make it more efficient, right?
Yeah.
And we'll see as we go.
Yeah.
I think like any new technology, it always starts with a lot of doubters at first, but then the adoption comes. And like how we've developed new products or services, we need to start teaching, start experimenting. Then as more adoption comes, you start feeding them with new products.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Okay. Bhatia, the head of digital revenue growth at Chubb.
And Neil Trinidad, the chief marketing officer at Gcash.
Thank you both very
Thank you.
much for doing
Thank
this.
you, Michael.
Great.
That was
Thank
awesome.
you.
It's a pleasure. Thanks.